Hello, I'm Sonja. I want to share with you some images from the flight in my Pulsar across a good part of the United States, from California to Wisconsin, Oshkosh. This is my route of flight. I stopped quite a few times and I spread the flying out over several days. I have just crossed the Sierra Nevada and I'm south of Reno, heading northeast. My cruising altitude is 9,500 feet. It is still early in the morning and the air is still smooth. It is very arid in this region, all across Nevada. There are only a few places where farming is possible, like for example here. There were some high clouds, which was good because of the shade they provided. Otherwise, it can quickly get hot with this large canopy. I have to swing quite a bit north of the direct course to fly around large restricted airspaces. I had selected Battle Mountain as my first fuel stop. You can see the runways ahead. The airport is at an elevation of 4,500 feet and the longest runway is 7,300 feet long. This means I have to taxi a long way to the ramp. The only fuel available is avgas. It contains lead, which is not good for my Rotax engine. After a short stop, I take off and climb back to my cruising altitude. I have some headwind going east. Mining seems to be one of the few profitable occupations in this state. Besides gambling, the first thermals are developing. This cloud over the ridge shows it. After passing the airports of Elko and Wells, I cross the border into Utah. A good landmark is the Lucien dirt strip at the VOR with the same name. I'm now heading out over the salt flats. The scenery is interesting because of the different colors. My overwater flight is short. I'm only crossing the northern edge of the lakes. It is time to begin the descent towards Logan, Utah. I have to watch out for traffic. There are many student pilots flying in this area. The fields and marshes in the Cache Valley have bright colors as well. On the ground in Logan, after about 4.5 hours of flight time, I line up for takeoff on the big runway 35 in the morning. About 30 seconds later, I encounter 3 large birds standing on it, but I was able to miss them. Once airborne, I circled the field to gain the altitude needed to cross the 9,000-foot high mountains to the east. The terrain behind them is at high elevation as well. It is a little greener here than in Nevada, and I soon cross the state line into Wyoming. Now it pays off that I took off early. The air is still smooth, but I still have some headwind. Unusual direction for Wyoming. I pass the last high mountains and I'm greeted by the Great Plains. Approaching Torrington, Wyoming as a fuel stop. Here I find a helper so that the Pulsar can have more gas. It was rainy the whole afternoon, which I sat out on the ground. Even the next morning is humid and hazy. It is only a few miles to the Nebraska border and a short flight to Valentine on the Niobrara River, where I stop for lunch. This is the Valentine Airport. When I continue on my way, the cumulus are serious about growing. I am crossing the Missouri River without seeing much of it. East of it, it becomes much greener below me. I have entered Iowa and I cross-check my GPS position on the map when I pass south of Sioux Falls. Now I fly almost straight east. It is bumpy and getting good pictures becomes more difficult. Minnesota is just north of Iowa and I cross this line into the land of many lakes. A large thunderstorm is moving between me and my destination Albert Lea. I usually select the destination airport before takeoff, but wind and weather may cause me to change plans in flight. I do not hesitate to fly to a different airport if that is necessary, or even if I don't like the looks of my first choice when I get close. I have to fly through rain along its southern edge. Finally the rain stops and the airport comes into sight. On downwind and base to runway 35. There is both avgas and mogas at the airport. Guess which one goes into the Pulsar's tanks? Then I am tying the plane down. An RV9 joins me later. It also has an engine that requires unleaded fuel. My radio has some issues in the morning, most likely from the humidity. But after drying it out, it decides to work again. Low cumulus are developing soon, but I can stay on top of them. The Mississippi River is the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. This is a short flight, and I have to get below the clouds to land at Reedsburg, Wisconsin. Reedsburg, on downwind to runway 36. I waited here the rest of the day to fly into Oshkosh the next morning. Low clouds kept me below 1,000 feet above the ground on my way to the first point of the procedure. After landing, the Pulsar is assigned a lonely parking spot. The Frecce Tricolori, an Italian jet team. Bird Routan's forums are always very well attended.
So this is 5 years, and it's great to be back.
A heavy showers and everyone looking for cover. A B-29 wing makes a good umbrella. If cowboys would have had airplanes 150 years ago, I imagine they would have looked like these. A lot of Route 10 designs had come and parked together. Many of them are canards. The newest jets are the I go shopping for tools at the fly market. The crowd is assembling for the air show. The air show performers' airplanes are parked here. A new old airplane, the Junkers Junior. The B-52 takes up a lot of space on the central ramp. Bert's boomerang is leaving. Some others are leaving as well. Standing close to the active taxiway is a good way to see different airplanes in action. A lot of larger airplanes are parked in Fighter Town. Time for me to leave and join the long waiting line for takeoff on runway 36. 400 feet above the ground over Wisconsin to get clear of the airspace around Oshkosh. Not far to the west, the weather is hazy again. Guess what? I have a headwind component again. I return to Albert Lee for Mogas. The wind there is blowing from the south, bringing hot and humid air and low clouds. I did not stay long but continued westbound. The clouds thinned and the bays rose. My course to Yankton on the Missouri River is about 250 degrees. This airport is in South Dakota, and I have to clip the northwest corner of Iowa again to get there. Spend the night there and continue westbound on the next morning. There is a headwind down low, but when I climb to 8,500 feet, I have a good ground speed. This morning is mostly smooth. It is hazy, but not so hot anymore. I want to try out Wheatland, where I should be able to buy Mogas at the airport. Wheatland is in Wyoming, north of Cheyenne, and as close to the mountains as you can get and still be on fairly level ground. Flying west over Nebraska, the green fields have given way to prairie, pastures, and a lot of open, uninhabited space. As I get closer to the foot of the mountains, the more agricultural fields reappear. After landing in Wheatland, where the wind is almost calm, I do find out where they are hiding the Mogas. Cash only. A thunderstorm moved through in the evening, and in the morning there is a breeze from the west. After takeoff, climbing over the first mountains, I'm confronted with 40 knots headwind. There is a lenticular cloud and some wave activity. I am slowly crawling past Rollins, then Rock Springs. Gradually the headwind is reduced to 20 knots, and I'm confident that I can make it back to Logan, my next stop, without an unplanned fuel stop. Passing Bear Lake. Westbound over the mountains bordering the Cache Valley. Logan Airport, looking west. This is again an overnight stop, and the next morning has some high clouds. It is hazy from smoke that gets worse to the west. At 10,500 feet, I'm near the top of the haze layer, and the headwind is moderate, so I am making good progress. Around my fuel stop at Battle Mountain, the visibility is okay, but between there and Reno is an area where it is really dense. Reno had reported 10 miles visibility, and once I get past Derby, the view opens up and the haze is gone. Now it is only a matter of crossing the last high peaks and completing the long descent almost down to sea level before I land back at my home airport after a long and interesting trip.